I'm going to share my screen. All right, and my name is Jensen Howland.
My name is Ashley Westman.
And this is our presentation, Using Communication to Create Contact for COVID-19 Families.
So before we get into the actual presentation, I'm going to talk to you about what our content and connection is on. So the article we chose to do it on is a nursing student who creates a communication guide to help COVID patients' families. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but as of right now, you can see that with COVID happening in the world, this is a heat map showing the cases in late January, and it shows all the states and how many cases there have been, and there's been many deaths from COVID itself. So this slide just shows us how many deaths there are by country. So there's 100,000 deaths per people per country. And then there's supposed to be another picture that showed up, but that's not on here right now. It just shows a map of the deaths. It shows the death count, which is really bad to say, but COVID is terrible and it's happening, and we're doing the best we can trying to stop it from happening. So this next slide shows it tells us how many people are struggling with COVID. People are trying to get food. People have lost their job. They got laid off. So it's been difficult. There's been over 2 million deaths worldwide and over 100+ million cases in the world because of COVID. Kids are out of school. People are working from home, and many continue to get sick. So the question at hand is, how do you deal with someone being sick? So this was supposed to show a picture there. This slide, it basically, many patients are in the hospital. It's hard to deal with, wanting to know if they're okay, because if someone has COVID, you're not allowed in. It could create contact, and with it, you may not even know you've made contact with COVID. So it's very serious to be aware of where you're at, who you're with. Many families got sick, little kids, elderly people. So another question is asking, how do you deal with someone being sick when you're far away? What can you do, and how can you advocate for that person? So this is getting into the article that we chose for the content and connection presentation. So the article, this young woman, her name is Candace Williams. She's a nursing student, and she created a guide to help COVID-19 patients' families. She's had firsthand experience with this. Her mom was diagnosed with COVID, and she flew to the city to be near her mom, but the ICU, the hospital, they didn't let her in. They didn't let her get in contact with her mom. So she flew to the city, and she was 1 mile away, but she wasn't allowed in. She had to wait for doctors to call, and she felt powerless. She felt helpless. She didn't know what to do. So Candace Williams, being a nurse herself, she created a COVID ICU guide so that other families didn't feel as powerless. So this just shows the ICU, where you're staying at when you have COVID. And when Candace Williams created the COVID ICU guide, basically the guide includes information about the hospital unit. It talks about expectations, the common equipment used, and also like the specific section focused on communication. So for her Candace Williams to create the guide, it helps families out so much because the doctors are allowed to look at the guide themselves. They basically, it's designed like a journal where the family can add daily updates to what's going on, any questions they have, their feelings. They're allowed to read it and see it for themselves in order to help themselves as well, to be able to care for their family when they're not actually able to be there, like in the presence of them. So she also included simplified medical jargon so they understand what the doctors are telling her, because there's so much that doctors know that we don't. So the guide helps us. It helps families know what's going on, what they can do to help without having to be too close, but still caring enough to be close to the family. So that's basically what the article is about, and this is how it's going to connect to the chapter we did. So,
So, so this week we
okay.
read chapter 2, and just kind of a quick summary. Miravel talks about how greetings are positive communication that create contact. So a constitutive view of communication defines it as a process that produces and reproduces shared meaning. So Miravel talks about like the 3 layers of an utterance, which is the semantic meaning, the syntactic meaning, and the pragmatic meaning. So it's talking about like the actual definition, and then the syntax, which is how a sentence is constructed and to make it make sense. And then the pragmatic um, it adds the 3rd layer, which is it gives it meaning, and it creates an action. And he says a quote that I really liked was, "But communication is more than the exchange of information. It is a process of creation." So even just a hello or communication, it creates a connection, a deeper connection for you and that other person. And then he goes into like the speech act theory and conversation analysis, um, just to kind of talk about like the context of the conversation. And another quote that I liked that he had said was that an utterance that affects the next utterance. So everything you say creates the next thing that is either the response to what you said or what you would say next. So everything's building on each other, basically. So why does this matter? Miravel talks to us on how communication creates human contact, how it enables a person to discover solutions, builds people up, deepens relationships, and serves as a source of inspiration and influence. So he talks about this not only in his book, if you were able to attend the positive communication webinar or watch it later, because I know Dr. Crispin recorded it. And he also says, without greetings and small talks, it's impossible to create or maintain relationships. So if you never say hello, you're never going to get to know anybody and have a relationship with them. This matters because the utterances, a segment of talk like how are you or hello, implicate the next relevant action and creates the context for interaction. Greeting is one of the ways of making contact and creating better connections. Again, you got to say hello to someone first. That's how you start most relationships. Or you don't always have to say hello, but somebody has to speak first or make a connection. So the ICU guide allows the family to be more knowledgeable and know what to say after the initial greeting. And it also provides tips on how to interact with hospital personnel. So the ICU guide and the article that we decided to talk about this week, it helps like after that first hello and after and also like to say to greet everyone on the medical team that's assisting your family member who's in the hospital with COVID, and just how to have the most impactful communication that you can have.
I can add to that as well. So, um, why the article relates to the chapter, it's having the guide written out. They can, families and anyone, they can refer back to it, and it creates opportunities for contact that are more meaningful with the doctors and nurses. So the doctors and nurses can help um, if anyone has any questions. So it
Right.
relates with that as well.
Right. So, and then I added a this graph that Mirabel created, and greeting is there at the top of the circle, and then the definition over to the side is to create human contact. And then I included a few YouTube videos that I'm just going to show some brief clips of. So first, this one is just a cool little video I found. It's a who put together this compilation video of how to say hello from around the world. So the video kind of goes on like that. There's a little bit more to it if you do want to finish it. But basically, it just shows greetings from around the world. And I thought this was an interesting video to include because with COVID happening, a lot of our normal physical greetings have disappeared. Like people don't really shake hands anymore because you're not really supposed to be touching other people, especially strangers that you just met for the very first time. And so it's interesting to see not only how people greet people around the world, but how that's going to change throughout time now that we have this pandemic. And then this is another video I found that I'm just going to show a short clip of.
Every single classroom management plan begins the exact same way. It begins with welcoming students on the first day of school and every day of the school year. Think about it. Your smile, your handshake, your warm greeting may be the only positive interaction that child has all day long. Let it come from you. You know, there's an old Jewish dictum that goes, when you greet someone heartily with a warm smile and a friendly salutation, all is well in that person's world, if only for a fleeting moment. The person feels a sense of validation that their existence in the universe has been acknowledged and recorded, that they are known. Welcome students every day into your classroom.
Go back to sharing. Okay, so I chose that last video because it emphasizes how important greetings are and how it makes somebody feel known and welcome and important. So then our very last slide is our call to action and our questions for the class. So the call to action is to think about using your knowledge of communication to help others. Helping doesn't have to be complex. Sometimes the simplest actions work best, and the simplest greeting can change a whole day. And Ashley, if you want to ask your questions.
Sure. So we have 4 questions that we wanted to ask the class. So these are just questions to think of. The first one is, why does being prepared help communication with doctors and nurses? How does this make it a more positive communication? And then, how can you use your knowledge of communication to drive change, especially in a crisis?
And then how can you help loved ones from far away? And finally, has a simple greeting changed your whole mood or day or life, depending on how important that was?
Right.
All right.
And that was our presentation. So
thank you so much. Everybody have a nice day.